Hagley Wood, April the 18th, 1943. It was a Sunday, the kind of grey, wartime afternoon where the silence of the countryside felt heavy. 4 boys, poachers, looking for birds' eggs to supplement their rations, trespassed into the private estate of Lord Cobham. They found a wych elm. It was a gnarled, dying thing, its trunk hollowed out by rot. Bob Farmer, 15 years old, climbed the trunk. He peered into the darkness of the hollow, expecting the white shell of an owl's egg. Instead, he saw a grin. At first, he thought it was an animal, a fox perhaps, but animals don't have human hair, and animals don't have crooked human teeth. Terrified, he put it back. The boys ran. They swore a blood pact to never speak of it. They were poaching after all, but secrets, like bodies, rarely stay buried. The police arrived the next morning. What they pulled from that tree defied immediate explanation. The opening was just 17 inches wide, a space so tight that Professor James Webster, the Home Office pathologist, concluded she must have been placed there immediately after death, while the body was still warm, still pliable, before the stiffness of rigor mortis made such a disposal impossible. She was small, 5 feet tall, mousy hair, wearing a cheap mock wedding ring and size 5 crepe-soled shoes. But it was what was in her mouth that turned a murder into a mystery. A ball of taffeta stuffed deep into the throat. She hadn't just been hidden, she had been silenced. But as Webster examined the fabric, he realised something disturbing. This wasn't just a random scrap of dress, it was taffeta. In wartime Britain, taffeta was hard to come by. It was used for lining officers' coats. It was used for parachutes. Finding a ball of it stuffed in the throat of an unidentified woman didn't just suggest murder. It suggested she had access to the black market, or the military. The case went cold. The war ended. The trees in Hagley Wood grew over the secret. But in 1953, 10 years after the discovery, a journalist named Wilfred Byford Jones reignited the flame. Writing under the alias Quasar, he challenged the public to solve the riddle. He expected crackpots. Instead, he received a letter that terrified him. It was signed simply, Anna. Anna claimed the victim was a Dutch agent. She described a route taken by a black sedan in 1941, a drive that started at a pub in Halesowen and ended in the dark silence of Hagley Wood. She named 2 men in the front seat, a Dutch handler named Van Rout and a local British driver named Jack Mossop. According to Anna, this wasn't just a drive, it was an execution. But it wasn't the murder that validated Anna's story, it was the aftermath. The driver, Jack Mossop, didn't disappear, he unravelled. According to police records unearthed decades later, Mossop began drinking heavily in late 1941. He told his family he was being watched, but his fear wasn't of the police, it was the woods. Mossop claimed that every time he closed his eyes, he saw a woman staring at him from inside a tree, leering, waiting. The guilt consumed his mind. He was committed to a mental asylum in Stafford. He died there in August 1942, 8 months before the boys even found the skull. Think about that timeline. Jack Mossop was screaming about a woman in a tree nearly a year before anyone knew she was there. Coincidence? Or confession? Byford Jones and the police set a trap. They arranged to meet Anna at the Dick Whittington Inn. The police waited in the shadows. The air was thick with smoke and tension. They watched the door, waiting for a woman who held the key to the Midlands' darkest secret. She came. She saw the men, and she vanished into the fog. Anna, later identified tentatively as Una Hainsworth, Jack Mossop's ex-wife, never spoke publicly again. The spy theory drifted away. leaving only the dead man's nightmares as proof. Spies are logical. They have motives. But as the war dragged on, the public didn't want logic. They wanted a monster. In 1945, a new theory emerged that had no logic, only blood. Professor Margaret Murray, a renowned anthropologist, looked at the evidence and saw something the police had missed: the hand. One of Bella's hands was found severed and buried separately. To the police, this was animal predation. To Murray, it was a ritual. She called it the Hand of Glory, an ancient black magic practice where the severed hand of a felon is used as a talisman. Murray suggested Bella wasn't murdered for silence, but for the soil, a blood sacrifice to ensure a good harvest. It sounded insane until another body turned up. In nearby Lower Quinton, Charles Walton was found pinned to the ground with a pitchfork, his throat slashed. Another ritual, another unsolved mystery. For decades, the internet has clung to a different name: Clara Bauerle. The theory goes that she was a German spy who parachuted into England and ended up in the tree. It is a perfect story. It is also a lie. In 2016, records proved that Clara Bauerle died in a Berlin hospital in December 1942. She died of poisoning in a hospital bed, not a hollow tree. Furthermore, Clara was nearly 6 feet tall, a towering woman. The skeleton in the Wych Elm belonged to a woman who stood just 5 feet. Bella was not Clara. The spy was a ghost story. The witch was a theory. The truth remains buried. Today, the Wych Elm is gone. The skull was lost by the police in the 1960s. We have no DNA. We have no body. All that remains is the question, scrawled on the Wychbury obelisk, refreshed by strangers every few years. The white paint refuses to fade. It is a taunt, a memorial, and perhaps a confession. Who put Bella in the Wych Elm?